All right. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good evening, people joining from different parts of the country. Uh, yeah, thanks for joining this webinar. Uh, yeah, just a couple of few housekeeping items. So, as a participant, you will be on mute throughout this session. We expect this webinar to be like 35 minutes plus 10 minutes for question and answers. And yeah, this webinar will be recorded and be made available in a couple of days to the registered users. And and you can use this question pane in the control panel and type your questions and click send button, or post your questions anytime during the session, and we can try and answer them towards the end. And we'll have one quick poll during this webinar session, and we should, yeah, we can get this. Yeah, myself, Jagdish, and along with me, I have my colleague, Mr. Divakar Menon, who is a head of QA and testing. Just a quick intro about myself. I have 14 years of experience in software testing. I manage the quality assurance and testing, and I like exploring new tools and technology that help bring efficiency in QA process. That's about me. Divakar, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, hi Jagdish. Thanks for that. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good evening, whichever part of the world you're in. I'm Divakar. I head the QA and testing practice at Trigent. And one of the key things that I look at is try and build capability and turn our testing teams into highly effective end-to-end test teams. I I think as testers, having spent a fair number of years in testing uh, before it was very sexy, I kind of got to a concept of what I think responsible testing really is and should be about. And that's what I kind of practice. I kind of espouse. Jagdish, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Divakar. Yeah, just before we move on, just about a brief on Trigent. So Trigent is a 25-year-old software development company, and we have serviced about 3,000 customers, and most of them have a long-term relationship and engagement with us. And we work across different industries, right from banking and finance, healthcare, education, transportation and logistics, construction, and retail. So yeah, Trigent is a leading enabler of digital transformation. We're helping in customer adapt to new business models and provide technology solutions in IoT, cloud computing, mobility, AR and VR, and DevOps. And of course, QA and testing being one of our major services as well. And you see, Trigent is also listed as top 10 most admired company, and you can also find us on what our customers say about us on Clutch. So, and yeah, that's the brief about Trigent. Yeah, and in this webinar, navigating the future of testing, we would like to cover how are the technology and business landscape changing, and what challenges the QA are faced with, and what QA needs to step up these challenges. Yeah, and yeah, before we dive into, we would like to take a quick 30 seconds poll. I think it will be presented on your screen shortly. Yeah, here you go. So, as a testing professional, the key reason I believe testing has become more complex is due to what would be your choice? Like the complexity of the new technology landscape, or agility demanded through DevOps process, skills demanded of me as a professional, or need to provide customers with a better overall experience? Yeah, of course, there are more contributing factors, but here is what we thought the top important challenges that we think. Yeah, I think we can give like another few seconds to put your poll.
All right. Yeah, please go ahead. It's important that we get your perspective too, and this is one of the few ways that we can get and understand your perspective. So please do participate. Uh, Unfortunately, in this socially distanced world, we can't really do fastest finger first awards and things like that, but we can definitely take your views on board.
Yeah. I
Right,
see
we have
some
had about
interesting results
60% of
here.
the participants who have participated, yes. And
Yes. Yeah,
okay,
59% voted. So just few more seconds.
uh,
Yeah, please.
yeah, another 5 seconds and we'll close the poll. And I shall show you the results of what people really think, uh, you know, it is. So, okay, so your last 5 seconds, four maybe, okay. Let's go down to 2 and 1. All right, and how do I close this? I close it here.
Okay.
Sorry, and let me share the result. Interesting.
Yeah. Thanks for participating. Yeah, Divakar, this result is interesting. So yeah. So putting this, I think 44%, the complexity of the new technology landscape, 44%, and agility demanded through DevOps process, I think 33% total. Skills demanded of me as a professional, okay, 6% there, and 17% voted for need to provide customers with a better overall experience. Okay. So Divakar, putting this poll result in context and based on your experience, how do you see this disruption journey being happening?
I think, Jagdish, thanks. I mean, I think this poll kind of aligns a lot with our expectations, our experiences also. I think it's if you look at it, just taking before I put this poll into perspective, let's just take a step back and see what really has happened, right, over the years. We've seen a lot of digital transformation that's been happening. Enterprises moving from brick and mortar, and they didn't really take on with the digital strategy as a whole, but it brought disruptors and people who came in with a digital first strategy, and that led to a huge churn. I mean, you had companies like Apple, Amazon, Netflix, who suddenly making it to the top 500 on the S&P list, but also their duration at the top has also been very erratic, very less. So new disruptors keep coming in at any point in time. So brick and mortar gave way to digital first. Things like Blockbuster giving way to Netflix, Barnes and Noble uh, going out of business. Unfortunately, I'm still a fan of the old book, and that feel of a book in your hand is always better than the Kindle effect. But unfortunately, that's not the way the millennials and the newer generation feel. So there is a lot of disruption that's happening out on that front. And I think in the last 4 months, 5 months, I've forgotten when. It's now what, since March, right? That we've
Yeah,
been
since
locked down. The new correct, and we it's happened in such. It came in as a sudden shock to all of us, and I think the world kind of slowly got in place. There are a few companies that really surged. Media, it's like as if people are gobbling up movies like they've never seen them before. People buying retail because of the the delivery experience. Didn't need to step out of home. Education going online, uh, healthcare into telehealth. So everything that people hesitated to do before suddenly took center stage, and I think this transformation and the acceleration has been sudden. It has been leveraging newer technologies that have come in. It is and it is leveraging newer experiences that people now need. The whole contactless, touchless experience that people want at this point in time. That's what is kind of accelerated. And just to give a list of all the areas where technology and digital transformation has impacted, right? I mean, there's healthcare, there's transportation, there's education. And Jagdish, I think you probably in a better position to just give a perspective of going through the clients that we've had for a long time, seeing the transformation that they are going through. We want to, spend a couple of moments on some of those aspects that you're seeing in what they are transforming towards.
Yeah, sure. Uh, Divakar, you're still on the quick poll. I don't know. Just
Hi. Okay, sorry, I'm sorry.
okay.
Uh,
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
okay. Okay,
All right.
I'm still trying to figure out the mechanics of uh, of the webinar.
Okay.
Apologies for that.
Yeah, no problem. So Divakar, to answer your question, yes, I just not few, but I see a majority of our clients from different business verticals. It could be like construction or uh, transportation or logistics. I see all the clients are in the process of technology consolidation and accelerating the entire digital transformations for making a future ready products. Just to mention a couple of example here, like customers in the healthcare space are building a telehealth related services and products that connect hospital insurance and individuals to provide that touchless experience. And there's a software or product that's developed for helping patient doctor remote connect during the pre-post surgeries and recoveries and drug administrations and lot more. And from the education space, the software built for school administrations. I see there is a lot of enhancements made with respect to building that capability and on remote proctoring for online training and conducting exams. And also there is more uh, development uh, on more bringing in more product stack that are future ready. That's what I see from a lot of our existing customers or clients that I work with.
Okay, so that's interesting because what we're seeing our clients do is not just so some of them are in industries that are definitely uh, hit by the slowdown, and we don't see them sitting back and wondering what to do next. I mean, they really consolidate using this time to consolidate their business plan for the next school year. I mean, the education client, like you said, they're really planning for the coming school year, and it would be great so this is waiting. I mean, when schools reopen, they will be out there with a whole new set of offerings and that are now tuned to the new touchless, contactless, remote world that we are now in, right? So there is both the acceleration and that level of consolidation that actually happens, right? And again, and we talked about that 44% feel that new technologies are the ones that are coming in, and we're seeing that in all these aspects. We're seeing technology from the AR and VR, and this is again led by what I would call the entire contactless, touchless experience, right? So AR VR is an interesting example of where people are using the lens and using that to remotely survey or even remotely uh, help with repairs, for example, of different parts. So there is that aspect. Sorry, there are aspects of IoT that are coming in, and not just from an industrial IoT perspective, IoT from aspects related to your sensors, your Fitbit devices, tracking health, all of that. There is a whole lot of blockchain that is coming in, primarily to ensure reputation and ensure seamless. Sorry about that. To ensure, and this is happening not just in insurance sector that we're seeing, we're also seeing this with clients in HR who are creating blocks of information that can be used for personal validation, for example, right? So you can actually track back and see whether your experiences are right, and you can do quick background checks as opposed to trying to, so that you can hire immediately. You're seeing a lot of RPA, and that's interesting because there's a whole lot of process standardization that's happening. Again, people have suddenly felt that if I am to work remotely, if I am to work with less contact, I want to improve the experience. I need to make sure that my processes that I use are standard in terms of how I deliver my experience out. OTT, obviously, OTT, in my mind, earlier OTT used to be considered entirely for the television and media platforms. But I think it's gone beyond that. It's gone beyond into medicine, for example. It's gone into healthcare. It's gone into how experiences get delivered there on. It's gone into education. So all of those are aspects where OTT platforms are, taking precedence. You have a lot of voice assistants. We're finding people who are coming back and saying, "Hey, can you build us, voice assistant chatbots?" I mean, chatbots are there, but how about voice assistants? How about getting them to use NLP and translate that into an experience that a shop can deal with, right? So we're building mobile shops that are voice assisted or run by voice. Uh, we're seeing that technology turn. We're seeing a whole lot of turn from a process perspective. And when I say process, it's that need for speed, if you will, and the need for getting things out the window faster. I think people are also using this opportunity to put in a lot of processes that allow you to get your products out faster. So DevOps is definitely taking center stage, and because of that constant pressure to build your releases, to put it out, there's a huge focus not only on the process of building, but the entire process automation in that stack, right? So how do you entirely deliver, take it from code to production, uh, well, in a quote unquote touchless way, so to speak, right, to the extent possible. And you get processes automated to help you do that. Again, no surprise, security, because of the concerns that people have with respect to not just what I would say being at home, right? I mean, it's not just work from home and enterprises that need to bother about security. It's just that being at home brings across its own whole new levels of security that is required, not only to touch enterprise apps, but in anything that you do. And the lastly, I think integrated very closely to the DevOps chain. I also think that the process of monitoring, the process of deployment and monitoring, right? That has now come again playing a critical part, not just from event management or being able to identify issues early, but also from a customer experience perspective, because those are indicators of how well different processes are actually playing out in the customer experience, to deliver a good experience. Lastly, there is this whole complexity that technology is bringing in, which is around the architecture, right? I mean, things are going serverless, things are going in a microservices world, uh, and that itself, if you ask me, has brought about a whole lot of challenges that testers need to deal with, right? So that is some aspects of the technology and the architectural change that we really need to sometimes take a step back and say, hey, uh, as testers, these aspects of the complexity introduced by the technology, the demands of the process and the level of automation out here, and the complexity introduced by how that technology is really deployed to deliver that end result. That is what is the complexity that we're unpacking, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So you talked about the challenges and the transformation in technology, the worker. So So what challenge do you see does this bring to testers and the testing with these new challenges and technologies?
That is interesting, right? I mean, the other day, it's very interesting. Let me take one particular example, right? AR and VR, and we were talking about this client who has this, so to speak, kit bag, right? And a kit bag has tools, a lot of that, and one of the key things they're in the manufacturing industry, and they need help with getting expertise on hand to actually help them fix problems in industrial machinery. And what they did was, since their experts can't unfortunately travel now, they have this whole, reality that's working with lens, with cameras, uh, you know, taking hold of that, superimposing that with actual blueprints, and then being able to say, where the problems are. But the problem really was, how do I test it, right? How do I get and make sure that in this world, I mean, if I was there, if I could see what I'm seeing and I could compare it with the augmented reality or the virtual reality being thrown out to me, I could say, hey, that's interesting. But testing AR and VR has its own challenges. How do you build simulators that are effective? How do you trap streaming data that you can constantly look at? So it became a huge test data challenge. It became a huge data challenge that needed to be done, right? The other challenge was really in about AI ML. I mean, uh, it's interesting because AI ML is, to be very honest, I've spoken to a lot of AI developers, and they say, yeah, we pulled this algorithm, and then you say, okay, why did you pull in this algorithm, right? What makes the Baines network the better algorithm as opposed to something else? And they don't have an answer. I mean, they just pulled it in. They think it works because they fed in some training data. And then the question was, okay, so what training data? How did one select that training data? Can we explain any result that the trained AI model can give you, right? And can we trace it back and say why is that? So there's a lot of work that's happening. I mean, it's still a very vague field. AI is still a broken enterprise. It's not really, while there's a lot that's happening, it is still happening in places where, where explainability is still difficult. And now there's a whole new trend towards making AI explainable, that's happening out there. So hopefully we'll get there to a point where we can understand algorithms better. We are talking about, how do you test customer experience in a touchless, contactless world, right? Again, you have multiple touch points. You need to deal with all of these touch points. You need to be able to make sure that at any point, you have not broken your customer experience, right? Either by monitoring how that experience has been delivered, or by actually coming back and saying, hey, so at every point you need to be able to figure out how is that experience being delivered, and then how is that experience, not just from after the experience is done, but real time monitor whether that experience is available or not. Which means that you need to be in the place where you can actually monitor or understand how systems are being monitored, right? We're talking about omni-channel experiences, and Jagdish, you are aware of the fact that, for our healthcare client, or even for our manufacturing client, right? We're talking about different tools, we're talking about different interfaces, we're talking about web, mobile, multiple mobile devices. How do all that get delivered at scale, right? So that is the other area that is there. Uh, the the understanding of technology, and again, when I pointed out that technology has changed, right? We're talking about uh, containers, we're talking about serverless, and these architectural choices also pose problems for testers, right? I mean, how do you test, and where do you test? Should you place a higher emphasis on how many such touch points, if you're going in for, let's say, a microservice architecture? How do you test for performance when you are now serverless, right? And these are considerations that need to come in as a part of some of the testing knowledge that you need. And sometimes I see people asking them, but sometimes I don't see people wanting, because they want to treat everything like a black box, right? But these architectural choices that you make uh, end up having a direct impact on the kind of tests that you need to run. Uh, you're talking about the need for automation, and again, the ability to automate is not so much as I mean, I don't want to get into that argument of tests versus checks and things like that, but automation is essential to ensure that you have adequate coverage, right? You do need to test a lot through exploratory tests, but there is a lot that you need to repeat, and that repetition is something that that can definitely be automated. There is not just the automation with respect to the testing, but automation with respect to the entire end-to-end process. So how do you take code? How do you deploy it? How do you deploy it in multiple environments? How do you put it into containers? How do you take those containers and deploy it in production? How do you monitor those production environments? All of that requires an integrated automated solution to work. And that is a complexity that we kind of underestimate at some point in time. But that is a complexity that we're gearing up towards. And that's a complexity that we in Trigent are building that capability to make sure that we understand the entire end-to-end stack. A couple of things that I've seen very recently come in, and I would put regulation and accessibility both under the same umbrella. We're seeing a lot of regulatory changes coming in because of this new normal. We're seeing, uh, the earlier uh, the earlier systems of how do you make sure that how do you assure certain transactions? How do you assure patient patient doctor patient confidentiality in a work from home or in a telepresence world, right, or in a telehealth world? All of those are issues that we're seeing come in, and definitely there will be soon regulation that will start driving that. Accessibility, because now in a voice area, what is accessibility in voice, right? I mean, again, there are people with speech impediments, which is now also going to take center stage in terms of how accessibility gets tested. There are laws like the CCPA in the US, which is really about putting accessibility, making it mandatory for anything that is publicly visible to be made CCPA compliant. So there's all of those challenges that are definitely coming in that testers need to deal with, and testers need to understand that. In our world of responsible testing, we kind of bucketed how you can possibly change, right? In two ways, we in three ways. I mean, okay, very simply put, people, process, technology. I mean, it's a nice bucket to put the broad changes and the broad strokes that you want to really talk about, right? But it makes sense because these are the three things that you really need to worry about and get right. Yeah. So if you look at the DevOps process, right, and I think we talked about this in our last webinar, right? I mean, about how rather than taking quality towards only at the test stage, you really need to bring quality into all elements of the DevOps cycle, right? So which is from the planning, the coding, building, and right until monitoring. These are all essential DevOps elements, and to us. When we looked at that infinity diagrams, and we thought like, hey, this is better expressed if you're putting the Q factor in all steps, then this is the way to really express DevOps. So this is what we really call our responsible testing, or the Q factor in our DevOps philosophy. Obviously, at one level, your simple philosophies of how you of what you need to do uh, is not very different. But you're really talking about risk. You're talking about the ability to assess risk, the ability to assess impact in a very from a very business perspective, right? You're talking about customer experience. You're talking about how that experience is now going to be delivered, and these two, I think, together is probably the single most important aspects that one should bring into center, bring into focus when creating test strategies and test approaches. Everything else is in my mind supporting that, either from testing early, leveraging automation like we talked about. How do you bring an automation up early into the life cycle, right from a unit, API, or end-to-end test levels, right? Lastly, I think one of the things that we as test teams sometimes have not focused on is the early focus on non-functional. And given the considerations and challenges, and I take this because the architectural technology mix that you're talking about, right, has brought the fact that you really need to engineer for 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 performance or for security right up early. Can't leave it too late, and if left too late in this new normal, you that is really asking for trouble, right? Lastly, I mean, I don't want to overhype AI, but I think there is very interesting things that is being done, uh, leveraging AI from a testing perspective, right? It's really about uh, uh, can I use it, and I'm strongly cautioning that one doesn't just blindly tell you what or follow anything that an AI system tells you. But it's at least leveraging the right inputs or taking that additional insights about impact analysis, about monitoring data that you can look at and say, can I get some more sensible data about how my customers really experiencing the entire journey, right? And use that as an input back into your testing. So all of that becomes important inputs or insights that you would, from a philosophy perspective, from a test approach perspective, that you would really bring in. We talked about the complexity of technology, and I think that is the complexity of technology from a design and architectural perspective. But there is a complexity of technology that is brought in from an entire process perspective, right? I think some of the challenges that we have seen some of our customers go through is really about bringing the right set of tools in. I mean, okay, yes, I've got a Jira now, I've got a Git now. How do I get the tool to talk in a seamless way? How do I make sure I get my data and knowledge out to people? How do I make sure that I'm building it right? What kind of tools do I need to do as when I'm building to be able to quickly test and integrate my unit test capability into that entire build cycle? How do I bring my end-to-end tests into that build cycle? When I'm testing, how do I integrate with multiple different tool sets across, right? That can give me or test my omni-channel experiences. How do I deploy it and release it in the right set of test environments? How do I make sure that my test data is available on demand? All of these are aspects that have very nice by itself automated solutions, but getting them to integrate and work together is a challenge. I mean, we've seen that, and in some ways, the process transformation can be accelerated by bringing the right set of tools, but it's not as easy as just saying, hey, let me install a tool and let's start, right? It doesn't usually work. You don't just install it. You need to get people to change. You need to get people to accept. You need to get people to use those tools effectively, and you need to get them to use them in the right way. So more than just looking at the tool sets, and there are lots of them. I mean, there are very interesting how would you say uh, uh, slide decks which talk about a whole lot of tools that can do any or all of these things, and very specialized, lots of them, but getting them to talk together is not as easy as 1 2 3, and that I think is a challenge that we need to deal with. But I think it's a challenge that's well worth it because you're talking about both giving you really good benefits across both the test process and the automation side. Lastly, I think there is this whole element of what people need to upskill to. Uh, we keep talking about customer experience, right? But we unfortunately don't pay it that kind of uh, attention sometimes that it really needs. It's really not about just sentiment analysis. It's really about uh, you know, making sure that the end-to-end experience, that is every time, it's like, taking an order, being able to place the order correctly, being able to send the right set of information to the customer correctly, being able to handle issues that the customer might have at any point during the delivery of the order, making sure that the order is delivered correctly, making sure that when you are talking to the customer, you're getting the right set of inputs, not just from sentiment analysis, but from how your systems are able to cope with either surges in demand. And you have to do this consistently. A customer doesn't care if it's a big billion day or if it's your Black Friday sale day. At the end of the day, that all the customer really is interested in making sure that I can buy and I can get what I bought without having to reach out to you at all, right? Uh, there's a lot of domain knowledge that actually comes in. Domain knowledge again from two perspectives. One, obviously, at one level, obvious to understand, make sure that we understand what is there. But I think the regulatory knowledge that in the industry that we're working in, that I think is again going to come up front and center. It's really about trying to make sure that because my I think a lot, we're seeing this in some of our customers that this planning for potential regulatory changes that are coming in and across financial industries, across healthcare, because the way the service is now delivered is now very different from what it was before. Right? Uh, we talk about customer experience, we talk about interpreting and understanding monitoring data. All of these aspects of that we're seeing in the monitor, the operate and monitor, uh, it is it is a very clear indicator of being able to deliver a good customer experience. And at the end, I think we really need to get there on that front. Uh, Again, I don't, at one point we used to have a lot of hats that testers wore. They used to wear the performance hat, the security hat, an accessibility hat. They would, they had a lot of these ETs, so to speak, and very highly specialized. And I think that specialization is required. There is a level of knowledge that is required, and to 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 be specialized in really doing a good job of approaching it. But to the larger testing fraternity, I think there is elements of this and how it can possibly and how you can catch early signs of potential failures. That knowledge, I think, is important to understand, right? Uh, but not to dispute the fact that I need somebody who is skilled, hacker to come in and actually uncover a lot of my security flaws, right? That, no denying that. A very understated aspect of what people need to probably also skill up on, and where I see a lot of effort being spent. And we're seeing that is trying to slowly get in with our clients, get them into automating their test data management in ways that allow for data to be created at the time you really that you need it, that and it's available for that instance. In fact, we talked to clinical trials. We were talking to that customer, Jagdish, about how they needed to make data available, and each of the data had different levels of maturity. You could take production data, you could scrub it, and you could bring it out there, but that really was not a completely effective solution. You need to create some data sets. You need to make sure that the data was available at the right time for the right test case, rather than creating large chunks of test data there. And lastly, I think it's an experience that came back to us very personally when we trained a huge chunk of our test team on AI and ML, and a lot of them, uh, you know, found that experience good, not just to understand AI and ML models, but also starting to think about, explore newer solutions, how those solutions can be helped, and how much of trust and faith do they need to put in those solutions, right? I think that was more important for us to understand, because I mean, people would blindly say that because the AI said it, it must be true. I mean, it isn't. Fake news is fake news, whether AI calls it out or doesn't call it out, right? And one needs to be smart at figuring out how effective algorithms really are, right? Uh, so yeah, so this is what I think we really need to do. We need to look at it from, there is disruption. There is a whole lot of evolution as far as technology is concerned. That technology brings in its own new sets of challenges. We need to be creating very specific testing methods, testing tools, testing what I would call testing farms, like we've done for AR, VR. We need to have that for each of your different levels of technology. We need to think beyond just how uh, you know uh, how products look to us, but go under the wraps, find out how they're actually built, understand that, and then evolve your testing strategies around that. So that's why I think that high levels of collaboration between developers, between testers, between architects, designs, uh, what have you, right? Even the business, and most importantly, the business, to understand the risk that we really out to manage. So really, it's about being at the intersection point of business, technology, and the tools to deliver a great experience. Jagdish, anything that you want to add to this? I mean, I've kind of
Yeah, no, Diwakar, you pretty much summarized, and thanks for information. And you put the technology challenges and also what the challenge is in front of the testers, and how do we gear up for this. I think that was a very good information. Thanks.
all right.
And
We are happy to take any questions
questions.
anyone might have had. Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. So I think there was one question that came. Can you further elaborate the difference between the Q factor and the DevOps infinity loop? Okay. Uh, I think let me just go to that one slide that you might be able to see, and let's put that up there, right, for people to. Okay, so essentially, what we want to emphasize in is that quality, as we see it, needs to be baked in into all aspects of the DevOps process, right? It's really about bringing in the right set of insights when you're planning, right? It's if I'm doing storyboarding, if I'm doing story grooming, it's really about planning, challenging that, making sure that not just the developers, not just the product owner is satisfied with it, but is challenged from saying, hey, how do I test it, right? So uh, what will happen if this fails, understanding the impact, understanding the risk there of what happens if that story should it fail, right? When you're talking about code, you're talking about making sure that the code is analyzed, the code passes through minimum quality gates. Uh, I a lot of good organizations that I have seen have got good code check-in principles, right? I mean, there have to be associated unit tests, there have to be associated analysis that come from tools like SonarQube, for example, right? So that is the quality that gets baked in there. During the build process, it's really about making sure that that you are building it right, you're building it in the right way, you're able to deploy it in the right test environments, you're able to then push off a set of good verification tests to make sure that your build is holding well. And then before you actually get into your test. So test is really where you would test, and this happens now on a fairly continuous basis, right? So you're constantly doing this in a loop. And at each stage, you will see that you really need to look at what you're getting from there. Are you, when you're talking about operate, right, and or deployment, it's really about, are you ready to operate it, right? Are you ready to, are you operationally ready, so to speak? What happens if failures come up? What happens? How do you monitor and track those failures down? How do you take that whole chain and make sure that everything's working well? Uh, how do you generate and respond very quickly to what different levels of emergencies that might come up because your application is broken, right? So that's really about the operations and monitor. So to us, it's really about baking in quality in all these steps that help us determine the Q factor. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. And Divakar, I have another question from participant. So in the era of remote working, how to test on different devices or cross-platform testing strategy?
Okay, so how to test on different devices? I think there are very good solutions that are available now in the marketplace that allow you to very effectively test. I mean, there are partners like we have partners with pCloudy, for example. I think one of our clients really works with Sauce Labs. There are device forms that are available. There are browser forms that are available. Browser Stack's a good example of where you can write once, you can deploy it, you can validate your tests across all of these different sets of devices. So you can very easily automate ones and get them to deploy and run those tests across multiple different devices, and you can get good monitoring information about how that process really is faring. That I think is an important aspect of what we work with, and that's where I think in some of the way we work, it's really about working with partners who understand this and and make sure that we are.
Yeah. And just to add to that, Divakar, not only on the devices, maybe even for the browsers, we have some cloud providers who provide a platform for testing on different browsers. And also, we use simulators and emulators to
Right.
address these needs
Right.
as well.
Yeah.
I think one other question. So, what factors must be considered while selecting a test automation or framework tools? That's another question.
Oh wow. Okay. I think there's always the debate is hugely on, should I build a framework, should I use a set of tools, and there are now fairly effective frameworks that can get you started, right? I think a whole lot of stuff factors that you might want to think of when you start. First is you know a lot depends on whether your framework's able to make it easy for testers to. I mean, at the end, automation is really about making a tester's life easier, right? Uh, and taking the drudgery out of repeated tests, so to speak. How easy is it for you to write tests to that extent? Secondly, how do you make sure that that when you write these tests, they can be deployed across multiple different browsers, so to speak, right? And run repeatedly. How do they? How can you get your framework to actually deploy tests into different containers? Be able to consolidate results in a very useful way? Are you able to integrate it with, for different types of tests, right? So you can have API level tests, you can have unit tests, you can have end-to-end tests, and let's take the popular tools, right? Let's take tools like SOAP UI, let's take tools like Karate API levels, let's take tools like Selenium at the end-to-end levels, right? At the end of the day, you want to be able to integrate and run through a single common interface a set of tests across all of these multiplicity of, of, of area across these multiple types of tests across these multiple tools, and to be able to consolidate your results in a very seamless fashion, right? So good frameworks will allow you a lot of that, including now you can talk about build small utilities, integrated with code coverage tools, get integrated with monitoring tools, figure out where code areas are weak, and get some kind of risk analysis about where your focus of testing can be. So all of that also helps to that extent. Yeah. So a good framework allows you a lot of that set of capabilities.
Yeah. I think we have time check, so we can take a couple more questions. So there's one more question. I know it depends on the person, but what language you think is better for automation testing, including support, documentation, and tools? That's one question.
This is the language versus tools debate. It's a it's a it's a it's an area that's fraught with a lot of personal choices. But honestly, I think by blindly saying, and I've had this discussion with on tools before. Uh, does a tool solve your problem first, right? It's not because, and I've heard answers like, why do you want to use this tool? Oh, because I'm comfortable with it. Why do you want to use this programming language? I like it, and I'm comfortable coding in it, right? Are some of the responses that you get back, but the real requirement is, for example, I have seen people use Selenium to run or write API tests. Now, it's not that it can't do it, but it's just that there are better tools that can help you do it better. They can help you do it faster, and they can help you do it with better coverage and better control. So whether it's a combination of Selenium, whether it's a combination of whether a choice between Selenium, SmartBear set of tool sets, there are organizations that are unfortunately married to certain vendors and hence don't look beyond the vendors, irrespective of the need. So I think we need to get out of that trap about really what is that one language or one tool that is universally acceptable. I think the real need is about finding out what is right for that job and that does it in the most effective way for you. Right?
Yeah.
That's my response.
Yeah, and also one other choice or decision that's made while choosing the language is they choose a language in which that software is developed and the technology stack. For example, if they're using a Microsoft stack, people just tend to move towards the C#, yeah, and so on and so forth, right?
Yeah, I suppose that's also the choice that you make because you have sufficient capability there also.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And yeah, I think we can take one last question, which is interesting. Like many opine that DevOps is killing QA. So what's your opinion on that?
Okay. I think, okay, let's say QA as a function. Let's forget about, QA as a function won't go away as long as there are poor coders. There is a lot of complexity that the technology stack introduces. There's a lot of corner cutting that happens because of the need for speed. Uh, it is a tester's job to uncover all of those weaknesses, right? Uh, it is changing in terms of what a tester needs to know. It's changing in the sense that a tester's knowledge of being able to take off from what a developer, let's say, created unit tests on around, and be able to extend that and say, hey, how do I now extend on what has been covered in at the unit level to the next level, right? So there's a lot of technology facing tests, there's a lot of business facing tests. All of that needs to be thought through completely. And I don't think developers focus on that as much as what a tester would focus on. So I don't think a tester just needs to get into the rhythm of doing it often and faster and finding out better ways of taking the drudgery out of his repetitive tasks. But I think that is really about what DevOps at speed is and automation at speed is.
Yeah.
Okay. I see one more question here. What are your thoughts on the importance of Docker and other containerization tools? Would you say it's a necessary part of testing? I think, and in my mind, it's really a deployment issue. I think what we have. Let me take a step back. What we have used Dockers very effectively for is to spin off different test environments to be able to run lots of tests in parallel. It allows us that capability where you can spin off different containers, get different tests to run across your different containers, bring back the results and collate it. So that ability to compress our entire uh, testing time, so to speak, has been effectively managed by running uh, different types of tests in different containers. That's a very important aspect of how we have seen containers, at least in the test world work. We can do different types of tests on different containers. That's also effectively managed. But whether it is a Docker versus serverless uh, architectural choice, that's very much an architectural choice that a design team would make. But from a testing perspective, if you can spin off different machines, if you can spin off very literally like a virtual machine, right? I mean, you can create your own entire environment in that. You can have that ready deployed at instances and run tests in parallel, come back and consolidate. That's the way one should really look at it. I hope that answers your question. All right.
I think we answered all the questions, Devakar, although we ran few minutes from our initial time, but I think it was a good conversation to have.
All right. Yep. Uh, that. Thanks, Jagdish. I really appreciate you leading this and coming back on.
Yeah.
on
Thanks, Devakar, and thanks
this.
for your information on challenges
Yeah,
that we have.
and feel free to reach us all. Mail us uh, at sales@trigen.com or reach out to us on the same webinar registration pages. Ask your questions out there, and we'll definitely try and get in touch. I appreciate all of you all taking your time off. Thanks a lot, Jagdish, for hosting
Thanks,
this.
Devakar.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Yeah.
Good day.
Thanks, everyone. And this webinar link will be made available in a couple of days. Thank you. Thanks for participation.
Okay. How do we